Awesome. So let's see. We're gonna wait. Let's give it like a minute and have people start rolling in. We're gonna start seeing the count. Okay, people are starting to join. It's awesome. Join, everybody. Okay, that's my YouTube thing. Awesome. So let's see. I'm gonna mute that. Sorry. Okay. Let me do this. There's a few adjustments. Okay, so we'll get started, and I think everybody would join, and they can watch the playback. All right, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Whatever part of the world that you are joining from, thank you so much for joining another episode of Show on Demand. I'm super excited, super happy, so grateful that you guys could take the time to join myself and my wonderful friends. I know you guys could have been doing anything anywhere else, but you guys chose to join me here today to have this pertinent discussion. So I do not take you for granted. Thank you so much. And if you've never subscribed to my channel, hit the subscribe button. It's that red button at the bottom right-hand corner. Just hit, yes, there you go. Just press that button right there. Subscribe. Thank you. And make sure you share this as well across your social media pages so that everyone else can join. And if you haven't joined yet, I need more people to come on and join us live. So today, I have with me two very, very, very phenomenal women. So let me look at the way it looks like on YouTube. All right, so to my left, I have Melissa Esplin. She is hey, Melissa. Hey. Melissa is a wonderful woman. I've known Melissa for years. We used to work together at King Abdullah University of Science and Technology years ago. Don't worry, guys, it was in America. We were not in the Middle East, but it was based on the King's University back then. So anyway, I've known Melissa for a while. She is a super mom of boys. And as you guys can see, she is Caucasian, guys, and we are friends, okay? This happened, right? So, on the very first episode of this, one of our callers, Bukola, to those that are not her friends, had called in and said, it's all good that we're having this conversation amongst ourselves, with our, African-American Black community. But I think we should also have this conversation as well with our Caucasian friends. Like, it would be nice to just know things from their own perspective and from their own point of view. And Melissa was on that, on the discussion. So she heard. So you see, guys, I have friends everywhere. She was listening. So she was listening and she sent me a message right away. She was like, I heard what the caller said and everything, and I want to talk. I want to come on, and I'm gonna get my friend to also come in and talk. Like, this is really terrible, and so we want to be a part of it. And I was like, yes, wouldn't God do it? Moving as well, or moving all the time. He's just, making everything perfect in His way. So, and then she connected me to Haley, whom I've been, following for some time now, and I am super delighted, super excited to meet her. She is also a mom. She is also a psychologist and a school counselor. So we are going to be tackling this discussion from the mom perspective. Melissa, you have kids of a young age. How old is your oldest?
My oldest is going to be 9 next month.
Already?
I know, and it shows.
Oh my God. Like you literally just got married right around when you were leaving King Abdullah house then. I can't believe that's been more than 9 years. Yeah. Wow. Oh, okay. I didn't even know that was so Melissa has, an older, her oldest is 9 and your youngest is how old?
2.
It's 2. Okay. So, she's that super mom age. Like, you have kids in that age bracket of mommy. They call you like a million times a day. You go into the bathroom to follow you. You say one thing, they say 2 things. They also want their independence. Their oldest probably like, I don't need you all over me all the time. And the youngest is probably holding onto your leg the whole time. So she has kids of that demographic right there. And, Haley also has kids. Haley, you have 2. Am I correct? Yes. She also has 2. And beyond that, she works with children as a school counselor. So I'll say you have 2 biological, and then you have a host of other children. So we're going to be tackling this discussion from the mom perspective, and also like from the clinical perspective, I mean, from Haley's experience as a psychologist, and also from the education perspective as a school counselor. So thank you guys for joining. Thank you guys so much. Everybody, people are saying hello on YouTube. Thank you. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Yemi. Hi, Buki. Thank you guys so much for joining. So it's been a rough few weeks, for America in the whole. We have just, I saw a meme yesterday and somebody said, someone said, so what happened to COVID now? And I think so the response was like, oh yeah, like, COVID took a break and this issue took over. In the meantime, like COVID didn't go anywhere, just took a pause. And then, now we have this issue of this racism that has just come up again there. So I just want to ask you guys, from your perspective, how do you see what's been happening? What are your immediate thoughts about what's been going on? Let's start with George Floyd and then work our way in. When you guys saw the news about George Floyd, Melissa, we can start with you. What went through your mind? What did you think when you saw that?
I kind of thought, so I grew up in the small town Pennsylvania, and there was very abolitionist, Underground Railroad. The entire town was in it. And we learned a lot about slavery and just persecution of the Black community throughout our nation's history. And when I saw the George Floyd news, I thought, oh my gosh, it's literally on YouTube. It's gotten to that point. Wow. Just total shock.
Yeah. And I would I think with everything that led up to George Floyd's murder, I think that it was kind of a shock, okay, I can do this in my own home, but it's now time to do a little bit more.
Yeah.
And really it kind of saddened me, angered me. My kids definitely saw me crying a couple of times, and we had to have those hard discussions because it was just, it's in your face and it's there and it's real. And, my mom, is very inclusive, and I grew up, thank goodness, with the mom I had. But it was okay, I can't sit back and just, I can't do this anymore. I have to go out there and be vulnerable and say the wrong things, but I'm trying. And I think that that's what we can do. Yeah. I think we have to.
Yeah. And you are, I mean, Haley, I follow you, and I've seen, posts that you've been making, and I like the fact that you said that it goes beyond just sitting in your house at this point and saying, oh, bummer, oh, what a terrible thing, I feel like millions of people worldwide are saying that. And now it's gotten to a point where everyone is beginning to realize, or rather we have to realize, that sitting behind your comfortable house, living your best life, and just being like, oh yeah, I feel for the African-American community. What a sad, sad thing. Can I have a double latte with whipped cream? Please?
Yeah, and I think
it's not like that.
Yeah, and I think
don't have anything done by that.
Yeah, and I think the Black community has had this. So for us, it's a tipping point. I think the Black community, it wasn't. We've seen this forever, and for us, it was in your face. This isn't okay. We're not okay
at all. You couldn't even. And that's the thing with the way he was murdered in broad daylight. I'm and he was unarmed. We didn't see him fighting or struggling. We saw 4 able-bodied policemen who we know, George Floyd is he's no black belt or, Taekwondo master or anything, you know what I mean, that we would say could take down 4 of them. We see 4 able-bodied men that I think are physically trained to be able to restrain people and are there, and yet you still knelt with your knee on his neck. So, in the past, maybe they could say, oh yeah, he was armed. Or, we found him in a compromising situation. Maybe he was robbing a store. or he was entering a building that he had no business going into. And the saddest part is to now even find out that the $20 bill that started all of this ended up not even being a fake dollar bill.
Mhm.
That's just the worst. Like, you literally just killed this guy. At this point, there's no excuse. You can't even push this on anything. And I think I got even extra infuriated when I think when they did an autopsy or something and said, oh yeah, he had COVID-19 and had existing, heart issues. And like, yeah, okay, but he was alive and walking very, very well, and I thank God that the Black medical community immediately spoke up and said, well, when we have doctors and nurse practitioners and nurses who understand how to read an autopsy report, and all of these comorbidities that you guys are mentioning are not enough to kill somebody in the way that he died. And I'm glad that they requested for a second autopsy to be done, which actually gave the actual results. So it's kind of like, you did that in broad daylight. There was no excuse. You know what I mean? Like, and he was cuffed. I was so sad. I was like, he was handcuffed, and he was literally telling you, I can't breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy, you can see the guy's face looking at the camera the entire time. I'm like, what were you posing? Taking a picture? People when they take a picture, the pictures are bad.
Yeah, I just kept thinking, why doesn't somebody call somebody? And I was like, that's
the police.
That's
the police are there.
So
yeah. That's you call.
That's you call. Nobody could have done anything about that situation without, them getting hurt too. And it really was appalling and really opened my eyes and a lot of others.
Yeah. And I think that I'm seeing a lot of people, non-African Americans or non-Blacks, and I keep saying the word non-Blacks because I feel like, and this is like another discussion for another day. I feel like there's so much disconnect between African Americans and the rest of the Blacks. Like, I'm of Nigerian descent. I'm an American citizen, but I'm of Nigerian descent. I was born and raised in Nigeria, but here now. But that, like I said, that's a discussion from that. So I think I'm always going to use the word Blacks and African Americans. So when we are filling forms and everything, or people ask, "Are you African American?" Nigerian American, it kind of. So I feel like now this has awoken people beyond just Black and African American community. Like you said, everybody now is kind of like, well, how do you justify this? How do you overlook this? And that brings us to like the next part of our conversation about being intentional about how we're handling this. So a lot of the conversations we've had in the last two editions have been, we focused on the home front. And I think it goes without saying that almost everybody on the panel, a lot of people, and even on the guests on the show have, stated and agreed that a lot of changes needs to be from the home front. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And again, for those who are the YouTube police officers, we're not saying that we're not trying to say that, if anyone is a person who's raised right and doesn't sag their pants and doesn't do this or do that, would avoid being targeted or harassed or racially provoked. That's not what we're saying. That's not the point at all. That's not what we're saying. But we're just saying that certain things need to be done from the home front. And so we've challenged ourselves in the previous discussions as parents of Black children, that what are we doing on our end, whatever, if at all it's even possible to do anything on our end to ensure that our children don't end up as a statistic or end up in situations like that. There's only so much you can do as a parent, because a child will be a child. You can raise a child the best way possible, give them the best things in life. And if this child is going to be, needing Jesus, they will be needing Jesus. Let me just put that as PG as I can. You know what I mean? So, and I think when we spoke, and Melissa and Haley and I had a conversation earlier this week, and I was giving an example that I know pastors, right? Who are great counselors, on the outside, look great. They look like great parents. They do everything they can, are praying steadily, they're doing everything they can for their children, and they end up having the worst children ever. I'm sorry to say. I know personally those who go bail their kids out every month from one thing or the other. You're like, how in the world does a pastor have a child like this? So this is, by me making that statement, I'm taking away some of the blame from the parents. I'm not saying that it is the parents' responsibility, although we do have a responsibility to make sure that we raise these children right, regardless of how the children ends up. That responsibility is on us to make sure we're teaching and raising our children right. So which now brings me to the question that I want to pose to both of you is, you know, I feel like our generation, I'm not sure how much hope we have for our generation anymore concerning the racism issue, but I'm very hopeful, and I'm doing this because of my children and your children as well. And, you know, I feel like my parents, you know, unfortunately, they did a lot of matches back then, you know, they rioted, they did everything. And we're in 2020, nothing changed. But we have to now be intentional and go about it different ways. And one of those ways is to have conversations with mothers like you who are raising children who are not Blacks or African Americans, right? I want to basically, you know, I want you guys to share with me some of the things that you're doing, the conversations that you're having with your kids, right? To ensure that they understand that there is only one race, the human race. There is no Black, there is no white, there is no green, there's no superior color or superior race, there's no lower race, you know what I mean? We are all one human being. And in other words, what are you guys doing? Conversations that you've had that you're intentionally doing to ensure that your children are not the next Derek Chauvin, you know what I mean? So we're gonna break this down in, I think like in, let's see, in segments, so to speak. So let's start with, given the whole George Floyd situation, right? Have you had a conversation with your children about what happened recently?
Yes, I have.
You have?
I have. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Can you share how did that go? What did you guys tell them?
It was actually when I was crying a little bit and a little bit overwhelmed with everything I'm reading as I'm studying up, and I was just really overwhelmed. And my son came up to me, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "You know, something bad really happened." And I think the best thing we can do is be really honest in the moment,
Yeah.
and, you know, and use appropriate language for the age they are, right? But I still think you have to be honest with them. And I said, you know, a man was killed because of the color of his skin, and it wasn't fair and it wasn't right. And you know, we talked a little bit more. You know, we have a lot of diverse books in our, you know, and so we talked about it. This is like, you know, remember Martin Luther King when we read about him, and kind of bringing up some of those right issues. And we said, you know, not all cops are bad, but they were supporting it. So I kind of brought it into there. I said, let's say you're at school and there's a bully and there's a victim and the bully's being mean, and you're sitting here watching it. You're the bystander. That's what we call it, kind of. You're the bystander. What do? You intervene. And these cops did not intervene and help this person. And so I kind of try to make it more applicable to him so he understands it. Yeah. And then we just continue to have those small conversations and snippets, you know.
Okay, Melissa?
And well, I know that my husband and I have been talking about it, and our almost 9-year-old and our 7-year-old are old enough to pick up on what's going on. And they just kind of stopped and were just there listening. And I was like, guys, you need to know that this happened. And like we've had, like Haley, I've tried to work really hard to like provide a variety of stories in our house. Stories from like the 1960s. We've read about the Love family, and the struggle for equality with Hispanic workers, because that's the part of the country. We're in Arizona, and that's really applicable for them. Almost half of their school is Hispanic or Latinx. And then my 7-year-old, her best friend is African American, and she came to me a few days later and she said, "I'm so worried about Kyrie. What if she's not safe?" And I was like, "Oh, baby." She's probably okay, but that's I'm so glad you're concerned, and I'm so glad that you're ready to help her, and let's talk about some ways that you can help if she needs help. And so yeah, we're just like having small conversations here and there, like Haley said, with things they'll understand and things that they can grasp in chunks. And I know that I've been wildly overwhelmed with just wanting to read everything and figure this out. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna change. Like, it's gotta start. It's gotta be now. It can't wait any longer. And what I've been doing is good. What can I do more? Like, what now? How can we move forward with this?
And I think kind of the home is one of the easiest places to start for us, right? It's the most comfortable to us
Yes.
because it's our little, our little space.
Yes.
So it's an impactful first step, but again, it's just a first step. So now it's going to slowly bubble over to our outside lives and our circles and expand us. And that's the hope. By starting in our home, it's got to start in the home. We have to use I work with students with disability as a school psychologist. And so, we call it a person-centered language. We don't say that autistic kid, we say that student with autism because it's a student first. That person's a human first. And then there are other, that come up with them. Or, if I'm calling somebody a Black person, then I need to call out a white person. Like if I'm describing somebody, then I also need to use the white language too. And, we talk about, we do have different skin colors and we all are one human race. And that's what it is. It's about from the heart, but we have to recognize, our kids have to know that people are treated differently because of the color of their skin. And your life is easier because of the color of your skin.
Yeah. And I think too, like a part of this has been talking to their friends too. When their friends, like one of the friends we stopped by on like some drive-by birthday party or something, and they were telling everybody, stay away from Chinese people so you don't get sick. Ah. And I was like, it's not appropriate, young man. And it's one of those moments where you're like at the playground and some other kid's beating up some kid that isn't yours. And you're like, no, this is not happening. Not now, not on my watch. And you can think I'm crazy, the crazy lady. It's fine. I don't care. But you're not going to beat up that kid, and you're not going to make racist statements at people driving by your house.
Yeah.
So.
And we have to be aware of that, like in our own homes. If an uncle, that uncle or aunt says some racist jokes, we have to be able to call it out because we have to model that behavior. We have to model that behavior, or else we are staying silent in a way, and it's just not okay anymore.
Yeah, that's something that I'm still trying to figure out, is because it's like, what do you do when like somebody, like a very close relative who your children love, saying things that are inappropriate, and you can only limit their time with them so much, and you want them to have a relationship with them, but at the same time, I don't want my kids around people who think that way or behave that way.
And it's interesting with all of this, and I've been posting stuff on media, and I think a lot of us have, but then I had to kind of take a step back and say, okay, now what are my actions? Now what I'm actually going to go do? Because now I need to be more strategic, because I was like, am I going to block this person because they said this? And I thought, no, because I have a voice. So I'm going to respond in a kind way from my heart. And I think if we're being, if it's from our heart, they're going to feel heard. And I don't know, it's so hard because that's your uncle. You love your uncle for so many other reasons. And so how do you call them out? That's a little bit maybe more kinder, instead of maybe in your face, right? Because I don't want them to go and do it more. I don't know how to explain it.
Like, you don't want them to dig in on it.
I don't want them to dig in and make it worse and be like, now we're just shut down. That's the whole purpose, is to have conversations.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. So one of the questions that I see on YouTube here is, I think Bukola is asking that, what are you guys doing to intentionally engage your kids with African American history? And I was actually pleased to hear you, Haley, mention that. I think you just mentioned a few comments back about how you guys had read or taught your kids about Martin Luther King, right? So outside of what is taught in school. And I think that from the discussion that we saw last week, or we heard last week, a lot of people had mentioned, and I saw this also online, that schools are not doing enough, when it comes to African American history, to teach the kids properly. Like those kids who are privileged to have parents who are very well aware of the history and have, more, advanced knowledge of these things, are able to call it, crap. Like, this is crap. This does not even begin to scratch the surface of what African American history is. Like, and I feel like this is not just about even our non-Blacks right here. I feel like even for those of our, African American and Black friends that are watching, I think that we all have to be very intentional about ensuring that we are learning, right? Not learning, but taking the time and intentionally researching and teaching our children as much of African American history as we can beyond the classrooms, because the classrooms barely scratch the surface, right? And they only tell you and show you and teach you things that are okay or popular to know. You know what I mean? The uncomfortable conversations are not there, right? So one has to, I remember when I was very young in Nigeria, and I think it was I've always been an avid reader. And I think I remember then my dad used to talk to us about talk to us about Roots, the movie, the movie, and then the book back then. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And this was at some point in time, I think at a later time, I think they started showing it as a series on TV in Nigeria. But before then, and I think I was probably like 8 or 9 years old, and I would never forget this, the book Roots was my first largest book that I ever read. I think it was probably over 1,000 pages then. I remember this. I was in primary school, which is our version of elementary school here. And I remember when my neighbor gave us the thing, Ayo, wherever you are today, God bless you. Thank you for sharing that book with me. The book was like, in the eye of a child then, it was like, whoa. You know what I mean? It was huge. But halfway through the book, even a quarter into the book, I couldn't put the book down. When electricity would go, I would have a candle. Even though my dad is like, you cannot have a candle, when there's no electricity and, lights out everywhere. The generator is off. It's like, everybody go to bed. I'll wait. Okay, I don't hear any noise. Everybody's out. And I'll, put a candle on and just pray to God that I do not fall asleep and this house catches fire. And I always just have a candle. Nobody would know. Sneak it and put it under my bed. So no one knew I had a candle on the match. And I would light it up and read. And I felt like that was my very first foray into learning a lot about the slave trade, right? And the journey that our ancestors made or were forced to make from Africa to Europe to America. And I read that and then started watching the series afterwards. And I think that was my initial one. And I just got more and more curious, right? And by the time I got here and had to start college over again, those when they ask you to take electives and all of that, I very well could have decided I want to take Spanish for elective. I don't know, but I would go and choose African American classes. And, there were a lot of things, even as an adult, that I found myself learning in my 20s that I did not know, but were necessary. The point I'm trying to make is it's all on everybody, but my Blacks, my African Americans, my whites, my Spanish, my everybody, to be aware, do what you can and be intentional. Summer holidays here, make sure you go to the library once it opens up, get those African American books, make sure your kids know who Rosa Parks is, Ruby Bridges, all of them, who all these people are, Edgar, all of them, the part that they played. So what have you guys been doing to ensure that your kids are, learning beyond the classroom and aware of all of this history that largely defines why African Americans are the African Americans that they are today? Because sometimes you just don't understand. You're like, well, why do certain people act a certain way or different? There's a history, baby. There's a history.
I think that's an excellent question. And for me, like you said, I love books in general. And so for me, starting when they were first born, I made sure we had the board books that had different diversities represented, different diverse communities represented, because that's really important to me. And so something I'm going to do actually this weekend is I'm going to look through all our books. How many diverse books? I probably have a lot more than some other people, but that's a simple action item. go look at your kids' books. What's represented in there?
Yep.
A very simple thing to do. And then, we love the Brad Meltzer series, The Ordinary People Can Change the World.
Right. Can you say that again? What's the name?
Yeah, it's Brad Meltzer.
Brad Meltzer. Okay.
And it's I think it's Ordinary People Can Change the World.
Okay.
And they are the cutest books. My kids are obsessed with them. They've got one on Rosa Parks. They have Martin Luther King Jr. They have Jackie Robinson, and my kid loves baseball. So I started with that.
Yeah.
And these books create I think they have Sacagawea now, and they have, there's just so many different ones. And I think they create such good conversations. He starts asking me questions and she starts asking me questions, and we're sitting there cuddling, talking about things. And I think the more diverse books we get right now, my 5-year-old, she loves Hair Love. Her hair is curly, so she's starting to see similarities, right?
Yeah.
Hair Love, it's not about racism. It's about diverse. I think when they're starting to be young, it's about seeing people of other colors.
Yeah.
And then we build up from there, right? And get a little bit more impactful. But Hair Love is just about another girl with curly hair who happens to have black skin. And it's her favorite one because his dad's trying to figure out how to do this girl's hair. Yeah. And she loves it. And that's the one we read a lot right now, But imagine if we didn't have that book and she wouldn't have felt connected. And so that's something I can do that's little and easy. But that's also my privilege because I can afford to buy these books. So when we're done with these books, we need to kind of pass them on to other families who need them.
Yep. That's absolutely that, Melissa.
So last fall, we started a no TV Saturday rule. And since we started quarantining, we had to modify that so I don't lose our minds. And so the deal has been that we only watch like documentaries on Saturday. And we're like, all right, guys, we're going to watch one about the Civil War today. And they're like, no, we don't want educational things. They stay there. And you get them a snack and they really stay there. And it's been good too. Like they've been able to see actual photographs of people in slavery and be able to watch. They're really like their schools have been really awesome about like diversity education, and they don't have time to cover everything because they've got 30 kids and one teacher. But it's sparked their interest enough that I can get them to like watch more and learn more, and they're little right now. But I can see it. And I found these graphic novels about Martin Luther King and Abraham Lincoln that I brought home, and they just devoured them. And it was like a slightly more like a bigger kid way that they felt like they could connect with some more history. And the books didn't pull punches either. So it was cool. I think like it's fine, like knowing your kids and knowing like their learning style. When we were living in Pennsylvania, we took them to Gettysburg, and the museum there is amazing. And like the first thing you see when you walk into the main exhibit is a pair of shackles. And they were like, what is that for? And I've never cried harder trying to get a sentence out to my children saying those are for humans.
I can imagine how difficult that would have even, been for them at that point in time. So I'm one of the things that I think one of our commenters is saying is that there really should be, the change should also be from the education sector, in the sense that the teachers don't even know themselves in as much of African American history, as they should, in order for them to effectively teach something like this. Because you can't teach what you don't know. You know what I mean? You can't teach what you don't know. And if you're only teaching what you've been taught, then the cycle continues. You know what I mean? They're going to teach you like the basics, the comfortable things that you can, you can't, how terrible. Okay, what time is break time now? You know, and,
Yeah.
and then
Are you finished with
you
your
do that.
worksheet?
Exactly. Do your
Yeah.
worksheet and that's it. And then you teach the other generation that, and then it continues on and on. So I agree with Bukola that we definitely, and I'm not sure how we can do this, but this is one of those things that we need to look into is what kind of reforms can we propose? You know, where do we even begin to have that discussions with those in charge of the education sector? You know, how do we even begin to have those conversations in terms of the requirements for people who teach history in this country? And like I just mentioned on the YouTube comments, and I'm like, there's a shortage of teachers in the first place anyway, or rather a shortage of good teachers in the first place. And hello, can they increase their salaries? Okay, that's another conversation for another day. But you know, hey, can they, you know, I value teachers at this point. After 3 months at home with my son, whew, you know, I'm sure everybody can agree with that. Like they're so much more valuable in my eyes. And yes, if you're a teacher, I'm rooting for you. You need a pay raise, but I also need you to get your information correct. Okay. I need you to not come and recycle what you've heard from your own teachers. I need you to dig deep. And that's the thing is I feel like a lot of responsibility also is on us. Like, okay, fine, if this is what you've been taught, but you know very well that these things go deeper than that, right? You need to have to, and again, I'm not a teacher, so I don't even know to what extent you can go out of a teaching curriculum or outline. You know what I mean?
It's definitely hard to go out of a curriculum. If they were given a curriculum, they have to do it. So it starts at the, you know, your school board. That's where it has to start. That's a local thing. You go to those meetings, you ask, what's the curriculum for this? And you review it. And then you come up and, you know, the school board is really where you can make changes.
Yeah.
Get elected to school boards or just go to the meetings. Nobody shows up to the meetings. And that's where curriculum is decided a lot of times. And they need people of the community, not just teachers on those, they want people from the community to have input. And so I think that's an action item you can definitely do.
Okay. I'm writing that down, and I wrote that in the comment section of YouTube. Guys, we need to go to school board meetings, okay? We need to go to school board meetings. Bukola, I hope you're hearing that. I hope you're ready. Get your wigs ready, guys. We need to show up at school board meetings. Get your lipstick, get your wig. We need to show up there, okay? And the fathers that are watching, this is not the women only. This is not a situation of the women should go to. We all need to be there, a good representation, and that's where we begin to push for those changes and for those reforms, okay? We need to ask, and Haley just said that we can ask to see what the curriculum is, correct?
Yep.
So Azumi, do you have any idea how much in advance this curriculums are ready? So like for the next school year that's starting August, September, when can we expect that will be ready? You know?
Every district is different. Sometimes they pilot one for a year and just have a couple classes do it. Usually it's about, you know, it's usually a group working for a year. They're looking at statistics and things like that. And I don't know even about history, you know, what's taught at elementary. I do not know. And I'm in an elementary school just because I'm not a teacher anymore. But I think that that's definitely a way. I definitely know teachers we have in different districts, right? It's different. When I was living in the Seattle area, we looked at our stats to look at our suspensions rates, you know, and we knew they were 4 times higher. So we had a lot of professional development. People come in and train us, but you know, now I'm in a smaller location, and I have never had that in the 2 years I've been here. So I think it just varies district to district at what goes on.
Okay. But guys, we can start. No, Bukola, you're not coming with your cornrows, your wigs, girl, your wigs. All right, so we guys, since we're starting this new school year in August, September, I want to put this out there to all of the mothers, all of the fathers that are watching this. Like, let's make this an action item. Let's find out how to connect with our school boards, this, you know, the district in which your kids go to school. Let's find out when their next meeting will be. Let's start asking questions about the curriculum. Let's see how we can get engaged. Let's see how we can make those changes from the grassroots. Like at this point, it's left to us. If we're going to have any changes, I feel like it's left to us to be able to do that, right? So we'll do that with the schools in terms of the African-American history classes. So my next question or topic is, Haley, so you work, you know, in the school sector, you know, you're a psychologist, school counselor and all that. Have you ever had like an African-American, you know, child come up to you and describe something that is in the line of being racially profiled. Sometimes kids cannot put a name to it. They have no idea. They just know that this happened or
Yeah.
this person said something, especially for like the younger kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like the high school kids definitely know what's going on and they can identify that. But maybe elementary school kids can come and, this set of people don't want to play with me, or they say I look different or don't want to eat lunch with me, or somebody said something. Has there been ever any kind of experience like that?
I really haven't had specifically where they're saying something like that, but I've definitely, there's some behaviors, right? And so that could be systemic, racism. I don't know, but nobody's come out and said specifically this person said they couldn't play with me. So that's good. And, or they're just not saying it. They don't know how to say it. And so they come to me because they're frustrated and whatever it might be, or something else is masking it, right?
Mhm.
But I really haven't had it, which is, I'm thankful for that. And like, what would I do? Okay, let's,
Mhm. Okay, absolutely. So Melissa, so with your oldest being 9, what is she in 3rd grade? She's 3rd grade?
Yeah, she's just going into 4th now.
She's just
Yeah.
going into 4th now. So I know that you guys do a lot of activities as parents and all of that, right? So have you ever witnessed like maybe another parent or another child being racially profiled, or you know what I mean, or someone says something snack in that regard, when you're around your kid, or maybe activities, maybe you go for any of the sports or school sessions or anything like that. Have you ever Haley's smiling, have you ever have you ever witnessed or come across anything like that before?
Not thank goodness, not that I remember. I know like so I teach our like the 6-year-old Sunday school class and there is a sister and one of the other, so we have 4 congregations that meet in our building. It's a busy place. And there's a sister there who is like, she's got to be like 18 or something. And she's very, very dark. And one of my little kids were waiting outside our classroom door to go in, and they're like, "Are those tights?" She's wearing really dark tights. And I was like, "Emily's, that's her skin."
Oh wow.
And we don't talk about people's skin.
But I would say like now
it's like cringeworthy, but at the same time, and like I don't know if she heard it or not, but it was a teaching moment there.
Yeah.
Where you grab what you can. I think I've been thinking about the person who filmed George Floyd's murder and how much courage that took them to do, because when you're in the situation with authority figures, like your first instinct is stand back and just let them do what they're doing. And sometimes I know that some moments I was at my sister's wedding last year, and this distant cousin that I was sitting chatting with, I haven't seen in years, this friend of my mom's came by and asked if she could take our plates for us, and we're like, "Oh no, it's okay, thank you." And she keeps walking a little further, and he's just like straight up calls her the N-word and laughs. And I was like, just that shock.
Yeah.
And something I've got to learn is to like register that shock and then act on it. And in that instance, like I was just like, "Did you really say that?" And I just got up and left, because he's a grown man in his like late 50s at least, and knows better.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question. So no, I don't think sorry.
I'm not going to experience anything like that.
I don't think my kids have seen that yet. They've been in like since they've always been in really diverse schools where I don't know. And like one time I asked my kids about, I was like, do you have any friends of different races in your class? And they're like, no, I only know like one Black person, a brown skinned person, and that's it. When like literally 50% of their class is Latinx. And so I'm like, that's cool. I'm glad. I'm like, good for you guys.
So, and I'm really hopeful that, we are encouraging and building, strategically building a world where they really don't have to experience anything like that. A Black kid doesn't have to experience anything like that. And, a white kid doesn't have to see another person do that. So that's part of why we're having these conversations to work in that. And some of the pointers, guys, that if you're just joining, Haley had stated that a lot of this starts from the home front. It depends on what they're taught. Now, Haley, I remember very well, I think when we were speaking a couple of days ago, you said that your mom, and I'm bringing this up again because I really want Haley to kind of stress this out again for people. Like, this starts from the home front. Derek learned this from the home front, or rather, even if he didn't learn it from the home front, he did not unlearn it from the home front. You know what I mean? Even if you didn't intentionally teach your kids certain things, you didn't teach them to do certain things. You also did not teach them not to do certain things. So those are two different things. His parents may not have actively taught him how to be, to be racist, but they also didn't teach him how not to be,
Right.
So, and Haley, I want you to share with us again. I remember, so Haley had mentioned how, where she grew up and how her mom was very intentional about how. So please share that with us.
Yeah, I would love to talk about my mom any day. Yeah, my mom and dad moved us from Seattle, very diverse community, to a very rural, kind of a suburb of a bigger city in Eastern Washington, lots of migrant workers. And my mom was worried about the lack of diversity. I grew up with a high school of 800 with 2 Black kids. So that, and they were sisters. So that tells you a lot about kind of where I grew up, but 10 minutes away, different story, right? And so my mom knew, they had that discussion before they even moved. If we're going to go back to our hometown, then I've got to be more intentional and seek those diverse experiences, and not to be voyeuristic about it.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily for that one Black token friend,
Mm-hmm.
but just to make me aware of differences and how differences are good. So she made me go work in an apple orchard with the migrant workers. I was a 7th grader. I remember these things.
Yeah.
I was out there, and she made me work in a hot field, very hard work, which made me think of the cotton, And, I went and visited, the South, and I had no idea cotton. I mean, this is as an adult, I didn't know this, that it was so prickly, and the importance of the cotton gin and all that. I had no idea I just had no idea. And this is with a mom who's been intentional, right? Raising. Yeah. Mm-hmm. She took me to the Martin Luther King, parades and the walks. Wow. And she had to find them. It's not like they were in my town. Yeah. And so she took me to see Rosa Parks, which shows me my white privilege that my mom could afford a ticket to go see Rosa Parks speak. But that was huge. I mean, just imprinted on my mind. And so those experiences really have kind of made me who I am and made me a better mom in general. She took me, I think, to a Black church, and I got to see all the women's lovely hats. And those are things I remember. And so from there, I joined AmeriCorps and was kind of in the middle of, kind of my mind was opened. And so my mom just was inclusive, and she made me see differences and how those make those people special.
I'm very glad. Yeah, your mom was very intentional. I'm very happy. And that's what we were trying to stress is you have to be intentional in this day and time. Melissa, what was your experience growing up?
I think it's worth adding, like, it has to be authentic. Like, you can't fake it. Because you see that sometimes where it's just like, oh, I don't know, like the Facebook mom thing, where you're just like, you're doing it for the photo op. And I'm gonna stop talking about photo ops before I get really angry. Anyway, um, so my experience growing up, like I don't think I don't know if we had anyone who wasn't white or Asian in my school until like maybe late in high school. So I grew up in this small rural Pennsylvania town, right? And a lot of people are very racist, and they're like, so-and-so's taking our jobs and this and that other thing, and people are ruining the world. And like, have you ever like actually talked to someone of that race that you're criticizing?
Yeah.
And because it's hard to hate, like, I love the saying that it's hard to hate people from close up. And
That's a good point. Yeah.
and I think that's just really true. So my experience growing up is that we had like just like we're very involved in our church, and we had like this broad range of like socioeconomic groups from people who, you know, had like good engineering jobs and were you know well off for the community, where it's really just like upper middle class. And then people who, you know, were living in a trailer that you drove up and you thought it was actually a garage because it's mostly plywood, and you're like, and like the missionaries are scared to go there. So there's that. And my parents always taught me that like all these people need help, and whenever are like they're dedicated, you know, I think like you come across things in service opportunities where there's a single mom who has mental health problems and needs her house help cleaned out because she got evicted, and you go in and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know people live this way, you know, where it's like just rotting food everywhere and just trash and just like sadness. But my parents never treated those people differently. They're still like, hey, how's it going? How's your weekend? And we're very genuine about it.
How they handle them, yeah. It's right. The kids learn a lot, you know, without even saying anything. Just you know, when the way they see their parents behave towards people forms a lot in their minds. Without you can't tell your kids, oh, you know, don't judge people, don't be racist, don't look down on people. And then you see somebody, you know, panhandling by the road or begging, and like, huh, you know, and you huff him, you know, and cough at them or something. Or like Melissa said, you go into somebody's home and you're like, oh, good Lord, you had no idea you could leave this way. You know what I mean? And, you know, the disgust, the many things that you don't want to vote, you know, verbally say. But if you have one of those faces that speaks like mine, people always say like, my coworkers at work are always like, oh my gosh, I always say, you know, like in meetings, nobody likes to sit opposite me at work because nobody can keep a straight face. You know, like they all like to sit left and right of me. Like when they just disappear, because like once you start reading my face, you're gonna start rolling because you can tell exactly what I'm thinking without me saying a word. So if you're one of those,
I remember being in meetings with you and having that same thought, and I was like, at least
if one of those parents whose faces say a lot without you actually saying anything, your children will learn how to judge and how to be racist, you know, because it's apparent in your non-verbal, you know, communication way, right? And they will pick up on that, even though you're telling them not to, but they learn more about. And isn't that very weird? Like when you tell your kids, pick up the toys like 20 million times, they don't listen. The ones that you actually say, they don't follow and they don't listen. But the one that I do not say, you know, like they're trying to collect something from someone, I give them like the death stare, like, don't you dare. They understand that one, and that's more effective. So I feel like the nonverbal communication actually is more effective than the shouting and don't do this, don't do that. How many times am I going to tell you to, you know, I feel like you get a lot more result than that. So we got to be careful about how we are responding.
Absolutely. I think you've totally hit on a key piece, because I think kind of using Melissa's example, when was it your son or daughter that said, you know, oh, her skin, is she wearing tights? You know, what a perfect opportunity to kind of say, you know what, she's got dark skin. What color is
Yeah.
your skin? And then it creates a conversation, and it takes practice,
Yes.
right? I think we don't want to say something because we don't know how to say it,
Mhm.
but you just have to be vulnerable. Like Melissa and I were like, do we even want to do this? We're so nervous, but we know we have to. Like, we don't want to put our foot in our mouth, and,
Yeah.
and we're not perfect. We're all learning right now.
Yeah.
We're never going to know everything. You know, my sister and I were talking, and she said, you know, we judge ourselves by our intentions, but
Mhm.
we judge others by their actions.
Mhm.
And so maybe we
Mm.
need to start judging ourselves by our actions.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of mind blowing when I was like, oh my gosh, you know, what are we doing? You know, instead of just talking.
Instead of
Yeah.
just talking. Yeah. Awesome. Great. So my next question, and we're gonna round this up here, is unless you guys want to call in, I've been posting the dial-in number on the comment section on YouTube. So if you want to dial in, go to the comment section. That's where it's happening. There are a lot of comments going on in there. People have been busy in there. So please go in there. And also, if you're here right now and you're not subscribed to my channel, please click on the subscribe button. Someone told me last week, like, you got to remind us all the time. So I'm reminding you guys again, please click on this. It's the red button on the bottom right-hand side of the window you're looking at right now. Click on the subscribe button and click on the bell as well so that you can get a notification anytime we go live. And one more thing, click on the like button as well, please. Like. All right, so crucial question. And this came up because I think Melissa just mentioned that about, family member. And that reminded me about a work meeting that we had yesterday. And somebody was saying, oh, how I think she said maybe her father. Did she have a father? Okay, sorry guys. She either said her father or her ex-husband. I can't even remember at this point. She said it was either her father or her ex-husband. She said is racist. I think she said her ex-husband. She said is point blank racist, right? And unfortunately, the children also have to have a relationship with this person, right? So the kids are caught in between learning all kinds of things from that person. And then she has to do the job of unlearning those things from them. And she was like, to the point of tears yesterday, she's like, because this is not how she wants her kids to grow up. And unfortunately, this, you're not, no matter how, you cannot, and if we were to go with the fact that this was her husband and their ex-husband, you're not going to separate your kids from their father because he's racist and say they cannot have a relationship with their father. So two different things. So we're not encouraging that. You can't cut him off because of that. So, and she was struggling. She just said she's just overwhelmed with that. You're teaching them one thing, they learn a lot of things from the things it says, things it does. My earring is so fabulous, by the way. Sorry, guys. Like, I gotta get you guys see this. It weighs like a ton on my head. So you have to see and appreciate my earring, guys. Otherwise, it was for no reason entirely. So, and Melissa, you just mentioned, being around a family member who, feels differently. So how can we address, what do we do, or what do you guys suggest when you find yourself, or how to handle it when you find yourself around family members? Friends, I can say you can do it with some friends, you know what I mean? It's not, they'll be okay, but certain key family members who are point blank racist, you know what I mean? How would you handle somebody like that? What would you do? I mean, it's a very tight position to find yourself in, but what's the best way to when they start making those remarks and all those things in front of your children, do you immediately jump in and correct that, or do you just keep quiet? And then when they're out of the window, you're like, don't listen to him. That's not what it is. How do you handle it? What's the best way to handle it?
That's a hard one. I'm like, but I think that's a really hard one. And that's, I think you want to call it out, but at the same time, like my husband and I will start talking and we're getting heated, not mad at each other, just discussing this stuff. And they're like, are you arguing right now? My kids, I'm like, we're not mad, don't worry. This is how we're talking. But I think in this instance, either you take that person aside later, right, after it happens, but I just don't think you can stay silent with it. And he's not going to think he's a racist. He probably doesn't, nobody's going to call themselves a racist, most will.
Yeah.
Most won't. And so just say, I would always bring up a different perspective, but I feel like you would have to call it out, but you have to be very gentle about it because this is somebody your kids love. And you know, I'm just trying to think of some instances where it's happened and I stayed silent and then kind of did what you did afterwards, you know, when he said this, I'm thinking about it now. So it's more, you know, reacting versus responding. Like, what's the difference? Because we don't want to be reactive. We want to have a, you know, and maybe we practice this like, okay, we're going over to his house.
Yeah.
Let's role play this out. Like, just for me, you know, how am I
Yeah.
going to role play this? And what would I say if he said this? Because I know this person always says this, but
Yeah.
I don't have any great answer because I think that is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
It's incredibly difficult. I don't know. Maybe the group knows.
I can imagine. Melissa, do you want to add in?
Hey, Melissa.
Yeah. I can think of one instance last Christmas that like I'm still mulling over in my head. What was the right thing to do in that instance? This relative was just making, I don't know if my kids were even there, but she was just making some very racist statements about Hispanic people and sweeping generalizations. And her sister called her out on it, which is interesting because she says the same things about like Black people. and it's just that difficult like balance of being respectful and responsive. And because like inside of me, I want to treat my in-laws the way I treat my own parents. Just say what I think because I'm still secretly 17 and have no filter with my parents. But I don't know, with some members of my own family, not necessarily my husband's family, I'm able to say, I'm so glad to talk to you today. If you say anything that is racist or involved.
You're freezing.
Oh, Melissa's.
Oh, she's freezing.
Yeah, she's frozen.
Oh.
There you go. Melissa, you were frozen for a second.
I'm back.
Yep, I think we can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I blame our economy internet.
Okay. So Alicia says,
Okay.
Alicia on the comment section says, call it out. Personally, I think if you wait, then it gets weird with your relationship with them. You can call it out educationally without talking down to them. My personal thought. I agree with that. I think
that modeling, right? I think is really important for the kids to see and intervene. And I think even in my life when I've, you know, I have somebody who kind of uses a term derogatory. She doesn't mean to, right? And she's probably watching, but like I have kind of trained her to not say this word. It's disrespectful and not, it was about disabilities, somebody with a disability and how she kept using, you know, and I'm like, it's disrespectful. She now catches herself. Oh, she's like, oh, yeah, you're right. I'm working on that, you know? And so I think it also depends on the relationship, how you can do it.
Yeah.
And it has to like, you know, going back to what Melissa, it does have to be authentic, that you cared. Like you're not doing this to be a jerk. You're doing this because it's the right thing.
It's the right thing to do.
See this, like, you know, and so, yeah. And I can think of another instance, like when I used to go, you know, sometimes in the lounge and teachers would talk, you know, negatively about these parents. And I didn't want those negative. I like to make my own judgments.
Yeah.
So they just knew. They stopped talking about kids and parents when I came into the room. It was just something that eventually they got, oh, Haley always leaves when we talk about kids, because I'm like, I'm on my lunch. I just want a lunch, you know? So I think the modeling, you know, eventually they'll catch on, and not for those blatant out there, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I've always, like with my grandparents, my great grandparents, they were very racist. And I always kind of was like, well, I always judge. I'm like, well, that's just how they were raised. And, you know, in one ear, out the other. I can let that go in one ear and out the other, because do I really want to get in a fight with a 90-year-old over something that's, it's not going to change anything, and more systemic. The issue is more systemic, not changing one person's mind. And so it's so hard though. It's just a push and pull, and like, what do what do you do in that moment? And so it's kind of you got to know your audience, right?
Yeah. I agree. Do you guys find it uncomfortable to talk about racism?
Yes. I mean, I'm having more conversations than I ever had in my life. And I have felt like, for instance, I went and had, I got all my grays done yesterday at a friend's house. And I was like, oh, is this going to come up? Do I need to like, it was exhausting. I was like, if I'm exhausted, I can't imagine somebody who's been dealing with this their whole life. It's been 4 weeks for me, and and I'm exhausted. And so, but at the same time, like, well, I didn't, but then I realized we were on the same page. So but I have had some uncomfortable conversations with very good friends. And every time I have them, they come out better. I feel good in my heart. And I think that's what it's about.
Yeah. Like the more you have this conversation, the better and easier.
Yes, the more you have it. So, and I even had to like, okay, I'm going to have this conversation if she says this. And I have, and it's been well received, and she's been listening. I've been listening to her. Anybody who feels heard is going to feel good, And so, yeah. But you also have your circles, right? I had a circle when I was living in Seattle. We had like minds. We didn't have to talk about this. And now I'm over here in a small town. I'm having some uncomfortable conversations, even on social media, and not hateful conversations, but like just really simple. Can I see the data on that? Or, something simple.
That's interesting. Melissa, how do you feel? Do you feel uncomfortable or?
Just a second.
Melissa will be right back, guys. So we're asking them, we're asking, if they feel uncomfortable talking about racism, because a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people avoid it, because it's uncomfortable. Oh,
hi. Willard. This is my Will.
Hi, Will. How are you?
He says he needs a diaper change.
Go ahead. We're wrapping this up anyway. So I know you guys we've been on this for a little bit over an hour, and I was intentional, guys. I said we went 2 hours last week, 2 hours plus, and the week before 2 hours plus. So we're going to make sure that we stay within the hour. And I know they are on the Pacific time zone, right? So it's still pretty early for them, whereas those of us on the East Coast, we're right about lunchtime now. So we are going to wrap this up and head out. We do not have any call-ins today. I think, let me see through the comment section. I think we've addressed most of the things. Oh, Keisha Short says, what is your advice, Jill? What do you say or do when you hear or you see racism? Oh gosh, good. Oh my God, now I'm on the hot seat. Okay, so let me say that, and I feel like this is going to be a very, very unpopular opinion, and this might actually lead to another discussion as well, is that in my years in this country, I have experienced racism from people of my own skin color, right? And that's the strangest thing ever, because you would always think that racism is from a different skin color to a different skin color. But I learned when I came here, that's not the case. You can experience racism from people of the same skin color. That's why I said it's not a popular opinion, but racism is racism. So one way that I tackled that, and I will always continue to tackle that, is to educate them. I intentionally did not fly off the handle. I see it as ignorance at its best. When I experience people who say things that are purely racist, or make comments, I'm profiled or something, I think of it as pure ignorance. And what do you do when you find someone, or you meet someone, or have a conversation with someone who's ignorant about a subject matter? You educate them. I've been racially profiled because I am of African descent. I'm Nigerian. I've had people talk to me at previous employment like, well, what are you doing in this country? And why are you in this country? You people came here to take our jobs. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I just applied for a job and I got a job. So I don't know what job you're referring to that I came to get. I've had people make all kind of disparaging remarks, So what I do is, I might say those comments in my head, like, what is this person saying? But I choose to lead with love and react with love, right? It doesn't, when two pigs battle in mud, or when two pigs battle, you guys are both going to be getting muddied. So I try not to engage in a negative way. I try to react with love and to educate you. That's the best way that I can. You might not like how I'm going to educate you because I might make you sound a little like not the smartest person ever for you to actually think you could racially profile me, but I will choose to educate you. So I lead with love and I just kind of educate them on why it's wrong, how it could be offensive. Because one thing I've also learned is I don't even think some people, when they make utterances, even realize the depth and the weight behind their utterances. And yeah, we have a call. One second, I'll call. So I think some people don't even realize, the depth and the weight behind some of the comments they make. They just say things, right? And I feel like educating them, and I've had, one positive experience with that where and this was in a grocery store, and she called me a name. She called me the N-word in another language, right? And somebody else who spoke the language was with me and told me what she said. And I followed her. And I said, ma'am, I'm not offended. I just want to actually talk to you, And, she was, still huffing and puffing. But I was just, walking. And those who know me know that I could puff and puff right behind you too. But I'm like, we're not going to be two crazy people in the grocery store today. And I slowed her down. I walked her. I said, how are you? How are you doing? Your hair looks beautiful. And the huffing and puffing gradually came down. You know what I mean? And she was looking at me and she was pushing her. And I was like, why did you feel the need to call me that word? I didn't understand the language, but so-so person speaks your language. And she told me that's what you said. And then she felt very uncomfortable at the direct question. I wasn't going to BS around it. I just asked you, why did you feel the need to call me that? She didn't have an answer. She was very uncomfortable standing in front of me because I guess at that point in time, now she got to think about you're like, why did I really call her that? I don't really have an answer. I had no reason to. So she stood there really looking stupid. And she looked at me, looked away, looked at me again. And she was like, I don't know, you were all in my way, yeah. She was saying all kinds of things that I was like, whatever I did not deserve to be called that. And her skin color was barely different from mine, like olive skin. You know what I mean? I was like, when you cut your hand, what color blood do you see? She said red. I said, I would love to cut my own right now, but if I did, you would think I was crazy. But I can assure you that the same red blood flows through me. And so because you and I have the same type of blood in us, I don't think it's appropriate for you to call me that. Now, the day you find somebody who has blue or green blood flowing through them, I give you permission to call them whatever it is you want to call them because they're not human and they're not part of this race. And we laughed. That made her laugh right there. And I use situational humor to kind of de-escalate things around me by nature. When things are escalating around me, I try to use humor to de-escalate that. So I had to just throw in that joke right there. And she started laughing. And I said, I'm a Christian. I don't know if you are. And I hope you don't get offended, but I just want to tell you that God bless you. Okay, have a good day. She was like, I'm not a Christian, but I appreciate you telling me, God bless you. Well, we're good. And I'm out. Mm-hmm. And in my head, I'm hoping like, God, I hope she doesn't, next time she wants to call somebody that, she thinks right before she utters that, like, is there a better word? Or why do I really feel like I need to call this person? Okay. So I'm going to take a few calls. I'm going to unmute the 3925. Thank you for calling. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you for joining. Thank you for calling. So tell us your name and what are you thinking?
Yeah, my name is Tunde, and Sharon has been a very good friend of mine. We used to work with the same employer some time ago. I just keep on following all she does. First of all, can you all hear me?
We can hear you well.
Okay, cool. So my advice for Taryn and Ailey would be this. Like, I know you're already, based on what you said, I believe you're already doing the right thing in your home in terms of, raising him and how to, teaching your children in the right path. But in case we have other people who are trying to do the right thing, but they just don't know how, right? They want to start from their home. How do they go about this? But before I wrap up, I'm going to tell you a little bit of my story. I came to the United States like 10 years ago from Nigeria. And right there, it's okay to describe people based on their size, right? And coming to the United States, I was trying to describe someone to my girlfriend, and I described that person based on her size, and she corrected me right there. That, you know what, you don't describe people this way. You don't use the, either their whatever, no matter how their size looks like, you just don't do it. And that resonated with me. Until date, I've seen myself making comments about beautiful people without even looking at their size. Just look at their personality and stuff like that. So I was about 30 years old when I came in, meaning that I was still able to learn. I wasn't a child as of that time. This tells us that I still a lot of hope for a lot of people out there. It's not too late. But what I'm trying to say in essence is that she gave me the best advice. She helped me to understand that I could still describe people without looking at their weight, and I was still able to describe them correctly. And I also want to call something to your attention. If a white child wants to describe another white child who is a stranger, I bet you that white child is not going to say, "Hey, mommy, do you see that white boy?" It's never going to say that because they are both white. Now, but if it's a black child, I bet you that word black is going to come in because it doesn't know the name. So how would you help a child to describe another child who is, of course, black without using that color? Because I tell you, it makes a whole lot of difference. I've never seen a black child describe another black child. "Hey, mommy, I don't know the name of that boy, but it's black." No. And even you as a parent, you're never going to ask that question. Is it black or white? No. Because, they look the same. So in the white community, what kind of advice would you give to black parents? Like, teaching your child to describe another child without even mentioning the color. Because my girlfriend, who happens to be my wife, taught me the same thing. Like, I was able to describe a lady without even talking about their size. And that has helped me to date. Until date, I'm able to just talk fluently. She's going to understand what I'm saying without making reference to size. How can you help a white child to do the same thing? Describing a classmate without even mentioning their color, and you still get who they're trying to talk about. That's my question.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. And in fact, just as you were talking, I was thinking you could make a game of it and describe anything, practice just making just anything in the room, describing something, because that's how kids learn. And so then you could get into people. Let's describe this person. What do you see? I think that is excellent. And thank you for that. Absolutely. I love it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a very good point, Tunde. Thank you for calling. And I just posted in the comment section that I think, and if I'm being very honest, I could swear that I've also heard, like African-American kids or Black kids also say, "Oh, yeah, I got something from, maybe they're on the game playing or something, and they don't know another kid's name. They're like, oh yeah, the white boy or the Spanish guy or something, they find, so this work goes to all of the parents. Like, that's another take home for us guys. We've talked about, going to a school board and trying to see what we can do about changing the curriculum and all of that. This is another take home for everybody, whether you're white, Black, green, or yellow, right? I'm going to do this experiment with my son. I don't recall him ever using the color of anybody's skin to, to describe them or something, but I'm going to be intentional. And I hope he's not listening. I'm going to set him up, and I'm going to try he's not listening. I'm going to try to set him up. No, because I really want to pay attention to it now and hear what he says. Maybe when the malls open up or something, I'm going to, and see if I see a group of African-American kids, or maybe and then I'm going to point out something and just see how he describes that person. And then that is my teaching moment to correct that. So we need to do that correction all across board, guys. This is for everybody. Thank you, Tunde, for calling. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We'll take the next caller. All right, I'm
unmuted.
Okay, I'm muting.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. This is Buki.
Oh, Bookie's on, guys.
Buki Bukola. Oh my God. Hello,
Bukola,
ladies.
we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. First of all, kudos to the women on the board. And thank you so much for doing this, and thank you for coming out and lending your voices. And to your mom, my goodness, that's amazing. Intentional.
Yes.
I was going to say something else, but the caller that just what he said about the whole weight thing is really true. How you describe people, it's intentional. But like Sharon said, we all have our biases. Let's not just act like, oh my goodness, it's the white and black thing. Even in our own community, we all have our biases. There's been a time at work that I had a friend of mine at work, and there were two women standing. They were both in a red shirt. One was black, one was white, and she was trying to make a comment. And she's white, and she found it so difficult to say the black lady. And the fact that she said that even irritated me. I was like, why don't you say the black lady in red? There are two. She said, well, I didn't want to offend anyone. This was about 7 months ago. So I understand the trepidation of not wanting to be offensive, to upset somebody. But at that point in time, there were two women there. They were both in a red shirt, and they were by the table, and she was trying to describe something and point out, and she didn't know how to handle that. So there's going to be times when that happens, and the genuineness and the innocence always comes out. But this girl, I know she wasn't being genuine. She was trying to be smart. But I also want to encourage and thank our fellow sisters in the other community that have always stood up. My son is in a private school, and in his old private school, they were having it was February, and they were having a lesson and talk about Rosa Parks. And I heard that she was talking about the bus system, and she was trying to have a visual of what it was like back then. And she put some people at the back of the bus, right in the classroom. Mm-hmm. And one child yelled and said, "Oh, loser!" And the teacher just went off the hinge, and she just let the boy have it. Now this kid is in 6th or 7th grade, and she went off about you this boy, you don't understand what people have been through. This because she got emotional. And she just had a long talk with the kids. Like, why would you say that? What do you mean loser? Do you know what that word is? I'm trying to explain this to you. Your privilege is why you're not seeing that. Yes. And it was a whole big deal. Parents called in and complained. Wow. You know what? This lady was not African American. She was a white lady. The teacher was a white lady. And they fired her. Go. What? I was going to feel uncomfortable. So now when the principal told me that, I said, now the problem now is the parents who felt uncomfortable at the fact that the children were called out. Like, you now have to make a stand. So those parents may be funding the school, but you are going to have to make a stand. And this comes back to our callers who are, non-Africans or Caucasians. You're going to lose friends. I'm just giving you a disclaimer warning that you're going to lose friends. I have lost some friends who are African, and it's okay to lose. Sometimes you have to you're going to lose. That uncle that doesn't want to hear, you're going to have to lose that uncle because uncle didn't fix the problem. We're fixing uncle's problem in 2020.
Yeah.
The reason why we're having this conversation now is because it's forced. Because there's no choice. There's no other way. We cannot look away at this point. If all that happened did not happen, we will still be going on as normal. We will not be having Shown on Demand having this conversation. You will not be here having this conversation. We'll still be in the toy store, grocery store, doing whatever we have to do. But now we are forced. I want everybody to remember that. The fact that we are forced to address an issue that's gone on for so long is a problem. And it's okay if you lose people. I've lost 4 people. They're not Caucasians. They're Africans. Like Sharon said, it's not just on the other side. Yeah. They may comment. I'm like, you have no idea what you're saying. I love them for now. I love them, but I have to just let them go. So I'm going to park you on the side because if in 2020 you're not ready to have a dialogue or have conversation, then I'm not ready for that kind of energy.
Yep.
So I'm going to let you on. I thank you all for all you're doing. I appreciate you ladies so much. Thank you for doing this. But I'm just going to let you know it's okay to lose people. It's okay. Do not cave into the, oh my goodness, I feel it's a lot for me. Like they call it white fragility. There's a book on it, white fragility. When you start telling white people certain things, they get uncomfortable, flip hair, maybe get emotional, cry, or feel like they're victims. It's okay. Come back to them. The ones that want to learn. I love what you're doing with your kids, the people around you. But I just want everybody to know it's okay to lose people in this moment because we're talking about lives here. Yeah. And thank you so much again, Sharon. This is amazing. And I want to thank the ladies for all they're saying. And if you see someone that's on your board, like the counselor said, she hasn't had a situation where someone did anything like that. If you've had a coworker that has experienced something like that, and do you know how to handle it, call the coworker out and say, let's help them. Some people don't know how to handle this because, like you said, they may be like you know, loving and all inclusive, but the families they have to deal with at Thanksgiving, at Easter, doing summer vacations, they are ingrained. They don't have any reason to care.
Yeah.
So she's dealing with, oh my God, my auntie and uncle who's been an educator, my grandma's an educator, my auntie's an educator, my uncle's an educator, and I'm an educator too. And Pretty Girl doesn't even know who Ruby Bridges is. She doesn't even know the full thing of Rosa Parks. So you're going to deal with that. So I'm going to encourage her to also kind of pull those people in aside and help them understand. Yeah. And I really appreciate doing that. Just pull them in. And guys, everybody listening, lose people. You're going to lose. It's like losing bad weight. The fat is not helping. I need to lose some weight too. So we're going to lose people. I need to lose some weight.
Thank you.
No, thank you so much. No Chick-fil-A for a while for me. No lattes. I gotta lose some weight. I'll come back to that occasion and nibble, but for now, I'm just gonna do my lemon water with my ginger and my salad and my nasty Brussels sprouts, which is nasty to digest, but it's good for me. Brussels sprouts, broccoli, all these things are good for you. Conversations, right? Seems like conversations, but they're not as pleasant, but they're nutritious, right? So lose the uncles, lose the aunties. Love you all. It's beautiful out there. Have a great day. Cheryl, you know I love you.
Thank you. Love you too.
Love you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for calling. All right. So we are going to is somebody else here? No. Okay. So we're going to wrap this up, guys. I think that was the last person for today. We just had 2 callers. So thank you guys so that we can wrap this up. I want to say thank you one more time to Haley, one more time to Melissa. Thank you guys. I appreciate you guys coming on. If you're just joining us, please go ahead and click on the subscribe button, click on the like button, and click on the bell so that you can get notifications for more go lives. Let me give you guys a tip real quick. We will have 2 more sessions. I literally wanted to wrap up this series with Melissa and Haley. But guess what? The feedback has been fantastic, has been awesome. People are reaching out to me and saying, well, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about that. Well, okay. So we are bringing mental health professionals. So I think that's probably going to be next week, Saturday. We're going to have a discussion with mental health professionals because guess what, guys? A lot has been happening to you and I for the last 5 months. Like, can we cancel the whole of 2020 already and just move on to 2021? You know, I feel like the first 6 months of 2020 has just been like a marathon from one thing to another, right? So we dealt with COVID. We're still dealing with COVID, right? And then the whole issue of George Floyd and racism and all of the riots and the protests and everything. And, you know, the blatant racism that we're getting to see. People are just being bold and just posting all kinds of things. They're unearthing and finding out that people that we thought were friends, people that we thought loved, people of our skin color are no longer, oh, what happened, Haley?
I don't know.
Yeah. Hopefully she'll dial in again. People that we thought, you know, were friends, people that we thought loved us for our skin or loved the fact that we were Black and, you know, we're exactly hiding. We're learning a lot of things. So how are we coping with this mentally? You know, how are your kids coping with being stuck and held in the house for 3 months and until August again, when everything is, you know, fully back open again? So how are they coping mentally? How are you coping mentally? How's your husband, your children, your spouses, people in the house with you? How's everyone coping mentally? And what we can do to help, or rather the resources that our mental health professionals would suggest for you to help you get past that. Because as we go into reopening phase of things calming down post George Floyd, post COVID, we kind of need to go back out there with a certain prepared mindset. So you might be going through certain things in your heart, in your mind, in your head right now, and you don't even know that it is post-traumatic stress disorder. I used to think post-traumatic stress disorder was only if you were out there, if, say, for example, you were in the military. Hi, Haley. If you were in the military or something, you know, you had witnessed some of those things front, hand, and center. I didn't know you could have post-traumatic stress disorder just being in your house cooped in your house for 4 or 5 months. But I learned a lot over the past few weeks, and my friend Tammy was educating me. So guys, we will be back with our mental health professionals. They will be sharing a wealth of tips for us to recognize if we're struggling, how to cope with the struggle and how to overcome it. I'm bringing you the best of the best. They're going to be here. And then we're also going to have another session with, and we're trying to organize that as well. We are hoping to have another session with, guess what? Our police officers, guys. We want to bring police officers in here to talk to us. Okay. So, and yeah, so we're going to bring them. We're looking to connect with them. So we have more stuff. Somebody's saying, can you organize a session with kids and teens from different races? And let's hear from them as well. Okay, maybe. I think we can probably do that. I don't know if that violates any of YouTube's rules about, I don't know, but I'll look into that and see if we have parents who, Haley, you're on mute. Oh, are you on mute? No, I can hear what you said.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Oh, I was just saying, I think they need to be 13 to do it. I don't know the laws on YouTube.
Yeah. So Glory, we'll
State to
find out
state.
what the law is. Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea to find out from the kids themselves. I was going to also have a session with college students because I know most of them are 18 and are adults already. So we're going to have, I was planning a session with college students as well, especially those who have, just probably ended their first year of college, haven't left home for the first time out in the new world. There's no mom or dad to protect you or fight for you, or to tell someone off if they come for you and things like that. We're also going to have a session. So we have lots of things coming up, guys. So make sure you stay tuned. Subscribe so that you know what is going on. Thank you, ladies, so much. I appreciate you. God bless you. Thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you all for joining. Thank you so much for being. God bless you. Thank you. And have a fantastic weekend all. We are out. Show on demand.